Where one nation ends and another begins is marked by their international borders. But drawing a line on a map that separates countries sounds like it should be simple, right? Well, in reality, it's often anything but straightforward. Borders between countries can take on all sorts of forms. Some are logical and clear, while others are downright confusing. A few of them might even seem fictional at first glance. Some borders might be as simple as a painted line down the middle of a road, while others are much more complex, weaving through towns, across rivers, and sometimes even through people's homes, with boundary disputes that keep diplomats and locals on their toes around the clock. Before we dive into some of the most fascinating and perplexing borders in the world, let's clarify a couple of terms that will help us navigate these strange territories: enclaves and exclaves. An enclave is a territory surrounded by another country. Picture a small island of one nation entirely encased within the land of another. That's an enclave. On the flip side, an exclave is a portion of a country that is separated from the main part and surrounded by foreign territory. Imagine a tiny part of a country being cut off from the rest and tucked inside another country that's an exclave. Let's consider an example. If country A is surrounded by country B, country A is an enclave of country B. Simple enough, right? Now, suppose country A has a piece of land, say Area Y, that's completely separated from the rest of country A by country B. In this case, Area Y would be an exclave of country A. But here's where it gets interesting. Not all enclaves are also exclaves. Some have coastlines or share borders with more than one country, which keeps things a bit more straightforward. At least for now. Now let's look at a more complex scenario. Here we have a territory, let's call it X, which is both an enclave and an exclave. It's a little pocket of country A surrounded by country B, but still part of country A. Confused yet? Don't worry, it gets better. 3 countries in the world are completely surrounded by another country. First up, we have Vatican City, the smallest country on Earth and the home of the Pope. This tiny nation is an enclave within Italy. It seems Italy has a penchant for enclaves because it's also home to San Marino, another small country surrounded by Italian soil. But if you need more evidence that Italy loves enclaves, check out Campione d'Italia, an Italian exclave that's actually inside Switzerland. It's a small town with about 2,000 residents who use Swiss francs as their currency and enjoy not having to pay EU VAT. The town even hosts the largest casino in Europe, making the most of its unique status. So, Italy is a country that's bordered by 2 nations, and inside one of those, it has a piece of itself. But the story doesn't end there. The last and largest of the world's enclaved nations is Lesotho, surrounded by South Africa, with a population of about 2 million people. To put things into perspective, Lesotho is over 70 times the size of Vatican City. While the idea of a country within a country is intriguing, it doesn't quite capture the true complexity of borders. So let's up the ante. We've talked about enclaves. Now let's talk about enclaves within enclaves, also known as second-order enclaves or counter-enclaves. I'm not talking about country A inside country B inside country C. No, that would be too simple. I'm talking about country A inside country B inside country A. Yes, such places exist, and they're every bit as confusing as they sound. One of the most straightforward examples can be found in the Middle East, where the Sultanate of Oman has an enclave completely surrounded by the United Arab Emirates. But wait, within that Omani enclave, there's a part of the UAE. So an enclave within an enclave. But this is just the beginning. Things really get wild when we head to Europe, where the border between the Belgian municipality of Baarle and the Dutch municipality of Baarle-Nassau turns into a real-life jigsaw puzzle. In the town of Baarle, there are 22 Belgian enclaves, 8 Dutch enclaves, and even 7 counter-enclaves. But don't think these borders are just a curious footnote. They're very real, clearly marked, and often run straight through buildings. Think of living in a house where your living room is in Belgium, but your kitchen is in the Netherlands. That's Baarle for you. House numbers even indicate which country you're in. You might find yourself shopping in one country and paying in another, all without leaving the store. Cafes and restaurants in Baarle offer the unique experience of dining across national boundaries. Parking lots let drivers legally park in 2 countries at once. Some residents even wake up in the Netherlands and cross the border to Belgium just to have breakfast. The real kicker? If the border runs through your house, your home country depends on where your front door is, unless it cuts through the entrance itself. Believe it or not, until 1995, these borders weren't officially marked. One Belgian man, who thought he was living in Belgium, suddenly found himself in the Netherlands after the borders were properly defined. Faced with the hassle of switching tax jurisdictions and utility providers, he came up with a genius solution. He simply moved his front door. Living in Baarle might sound like a logistical nightmare, but it's not as bad as it seems. Both countries are part of the Schengen area, which means borders are open and free to cross, and both have used the euro since 2002. Plus, with Dutch being the official language in northern Belgium, there's no language barrier. Just when you think it couldn't get more complicated, we arrive at the India-Bangladesh border. This boundary is home to the world's most complex enclave system, with 92 Indian enclaves in Bangladesh and 106 Bangladeshi enclaves in India. It's here that we find the only third-order enclave in the world, a piece of Bangladesh inside India, which is inside another part of India inside Bangladesh. This mind-boggling situation isn't just an academic curiosity, it has real consequences. With closed borders between India and Bangladesh, about 50,000 people are trapped in these enclaves, often without access to basic services like electricity, healthcare, or education. Crime rates in the India-Bangladesh enclaves are high because emergency services can't cross borders to provide help. In 2011, both countries began trading land parcels to improve the situation, but progress has been slow. The Tin Bigha corridor, a small strip of land leased by India, now allows Bangladeshi citizens access to the mainland, though it took nearly 40 years from the initial proposal in 1974 to reach an agreement. The complexities of borders continue with the Diomede Islands in the Bering Strait. Just 3.8 kilometers apart, Little Diomede belongs to the US and Big Diomede to Russia. But they are separated by the international date line, making them 21 hours apart. In winter, a frozen sea allows walking from today into tomorrow, making this border uniquely fascinating. Leaving time zones behind, we turn to the African continent, where the border between Sudan and Egypt presents another puzzling scenario. Ask Egypt where the border is, and they'll point to one line. Ask Sudan, and they'll point to another. This disagreement has led to two overlapping pieces of land: the Halaib Triangle, claimed by both countries, and Bir Tawil, claimed by neither. The Halaib Triangle is 10 times the size of Bir Tawil and sits along the Red Sea coast, while Bir Tawil is a landlocked, uninhabited desert. The dispute over the Halaib Triangle dates back to 1899, before Sudan gained independence, when the British drew the 22nd parallel as the border. Later, they established a new administrative boundary to reflect the realities on the ground, leading to the current conflict. Today, Egypt controls the Halaib Triangle, while Bir Tawil remains one of the few unclaimed territories in the world. Following this dispute, let's take a look at the Norway-Russia border near Kirkenes. The Norway-Russia border near Kirkenes, a rare divide between a NATO member and Russia, is geopolitically significant. Despite tensions, it remains peacefully marked, cutting through the scenic Pasvik River area. The Sami people's presence adds cultural depth, emphasizing the human aspect often overlooked in political borders. Finally, while we're on the topic of complicated borders, we can't forget Cyprus. The island is roughly divided between the Republic of Cyprus and Northern Cyprus, which declared independence in 1983, but is only recognized by Turkey. Adding to the complexity are the British sovereign base areas and several enclaves and exclaves that crisscross the island. The situation in Cyprus is a legacy of its colonial past and the 1974 Turkish invasion, which led to the establishment of the United Nations buffer zone that still divides the island today. Despite the ongoing dispute, life continues, and the intricate borders remain a testament to the island's turbulent history. These examples are just a few of the many intricate and fascinating borders around the world. From the tense divide between North and South Korea to the watery boundary of the Diomede Islands, where just 4 kilometers and 23 hours separate two islands, the world's borders are as diverse and complex as the countries they divide. But those are stories for another time. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the world's most amazing borders.